to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Pat Thurman, Registered Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Corner Canyon High School in Draper, Utah. Pat, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience in the United States and across the world where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
So I grew up in the Avenues area of Salt Lake City and went to West High School. And then I went to the University of Utah, was going to study, was pre-business for a little bit. And then I took a political science class with Ted Wilson, who was the former mayor of Salt Lake City, and just was mesmerized by the class and loved it. And so I pursued a degree in political science from the U. And then when I finished with that, there were two options: either go into law or go into teaching. And I decided I want to go into teaching. And so I went to Westminster and I got my teaching license. And I did my student teaching at Cottonwood High School. And then I got my first teaching job at Alta High School and taught there for 8 years. And then the second year that Corner Canyon was open, I came over to Corner, started teaching American government, and then a concurrent enrollment class, political science, and then kind of fell into the athletic director job.
That is awesome. Talk about your youth, and were you involved in athletics at all? Did you play football, little league baseball, basketball, soccer, all that kind of stuff when you were younger?
Yeah, so I was looking back, I mean, I was really fortunate. My parents kind of got me involved with just about everything. I started playing little league soccer probably when I was 5 or 6, and then was on a swim team. I played a lot of tennis. I played some basketball. So really was kind of exposed to just about everything. The only one was football. The fear was, well, football's too dangerous. So I never played organized football, but I certainly at recess or then getting older would play pickup football games all the time with my friends. And so, yeah, I mean, I was especially high school. So in high school, I was on the swim team and I was on the soccer team, and really enjoyed those. But then when I wasn't at school, at practice, then I was with my friends and we were either playing football, we were playing basketball, we were constantly being active. And so, yeah, I did spend a lot of time around sports, but didn't have any idea that it would play a role in what I would do. It was more just, yeah, I'm just playing and I'm playing and having fun.
Let me ask you a follow-up about the avenues. So were you closer to the LDS hospital? Were you closer to the cemetery? Were you kind of in the middle, or was it upper avenues, lower avenues?
It was upper avenue. So it was up above the cemetery. Went to Ensign High School, and I learned I learned that walking uphill after school is not a bad thing. Going downhill on a bike, you got to be really careful. And then it was great training for driving in the snow, because I just had a 2-wheel drive car. And so learning to drive and then driving in the snow and getting home, it certainly has paid off growing up on those hills.
So I'm interested. So in a bad snowstorm, did you have to go all the way up South Temple to try to get to the upper avenues that way, and then along 11th Avenue and then up from there? Or? Because
Yeah,
some of those are pretty
I mean
steep,
that
and like A, B, C, and
they are
D.
the you learn some of the tricks, and usually the best street to take would be E Street because
Yeah,
that's when LDS Hospital was a trauma one center, and so E
right.
Street usually was one of the first streets to get plowed. So you'd go up E Street, it wasn't nearly as steep as I Street. Go up E, cut across on 11th, and then hope that the plows had hit I Street or Terrace Hills Drive to get my way up there. And it was actually when I was teaching at Alta. There was one night when it was really bad snowstorm and I didn't think I could get home. They hadn't plowed, and so I did have to park my car down below. And my wife she was in an SUV and she was able to come down and pick me up. But no, there's never a time when I got stuck. There are a few times when I got a little stuck.
That's interesting. Let's have you talk for a minute, Pat, about the mentors you've had in your life, leaders, coaches, bosses, etc.
Yeah, so one that certainly came to mind was my soccer coach that I had at West High. His name was Mike Shabrias, and he was a teacher there, and he had played soccer at Woods Cross High School, and then actually was a walk-on up at the University of Utah on their football team as a kicker. But he was one I spent a lot of time in his classroom, and after practice, and just one that looking back, he 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 showed the importance of relationships and just believing in people, listening to people, and willing to talk about just about anything. So, as a soccer player, he helped me and helped the rest of our guys really kind of, I think, reach our best potential. So he was one that I really looked up to, and in fact, I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he was one of the first people that then reached out to me when I got home and asked if I'd be interested in helping out with soccer. And but then he also said, but I don't want you to think that you need to pursue a career in education or coaching. And so probably without that encouragement, but also that caveat, I probably wouldn't be doing this. But it certainly, I wanted to kind of emulate what he was doing. Um, then I got involved. I swam, and then another guy is kind of some mutual friends put me together with the coach at East High School for the swim team. His name is Mark Gray, and we spent a lot of years together, both coaching the high school team, and then I helped out a lot with the club team. And I had I look back and I think I wish I would have had a coach like him when I was younger, because he was an amazing coach in terms of details and just understanding how to actually be a better swimmer, and instead of just, well, go faster or try harder. I learned so much from him, and I look back in my first few years of helping out with the summer league team, I'm shocked I didn't break people with how bad of a coach I would have been. But I learned so much about the science of swimming from him, and he's now coaching at Highland, and I love bumping into him still with different functions. And then the other one I think that really, I guess, put me on this path of getting involved with being an athletic director would be Morgan Brown. He was the AD at Alta High School, and so when I first got a job at Alta, I was hired to be a teacher. I was also asked to help out with the swim team, and Alta at the time was just phenomenal in so many different sports, and so I wanted to be a part of things. And so I kind of just reached out to Morgan and said, hey, what do you need help with? What can I do? And so my first couple of years, I would help out doing chains at football games. There was a couple of times when I'd help out as a backup guy on the clock. And then there's times that I'd help paint lines for soccer games and things like that. So working with Morgan, seeing some of that side of being an AD, but also, I think one of the best things that I take from Morgan is you don't you don't need to get too upset or too worried about things. Things are going to work out. And so just kind of having, how best to put it, not taking things too seriously and not overreacting about things. Morgan, I don't know that he's ever had a bad day in his life. He has a smile on his face all the time. I'm not to
He
that
does.
point, but he showed me, taught me that you that things will work out, and you don't need to. You can take your time to take a breath and figure things out.
Excellent. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question, Pat. What's your
Yeah,
biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
biggest failure. Wow. Um, I think the the thing, excuse me, that kind of touching upon what I was mentioning with Morgan. Um, I definitely, I'm an emotional person, and um I take things very personally, and so but then I also I tend to be too analytical with things, and so I would say my biggest failure is seeing something happen, or hearing someone say something to me, or an email or a message that gets to me, and too often, especially when I was younger, and when I was first teaching, when I was first coaching, when I was first as an athletic director, taking things and interpreting that in the worst possible way, instead of, no, this, try to see what it is that they are seeing through their perspective, and try to understand that they're coming from a completely different perspective, that I don't have all of the information. I don't have everything. I'm not aware of everything that's going on. But also the person who's saying something to me, they don't have the whole story yet either, but their perspective matters. And so I would say that trying to look for, not look at what the worst possible reasons, and not jumping to conclusions, not assuming that people's intentions are bad, um, but trying to just be more open, and trying to do better. I'm not good at conflict resolution, and that was one of the big reasons I did not want to go into laws. I just viewed law as something that there's constant argument, and I don't do well with that. So I would say that I tend to be convinced that I'm right, and anyone else that has a different opinion is wrong. And so trying to overcome that, it's something that I'm definitely aware of. I think I'm doing better with it, but I definitely have a long ways to go.
Let's talk about, you transferred to from Alta to Corner after it opened up, and all of a sudden you're coaching swimming at Corner, and they just said, "Hey, you DJ says, do you want to become the next AD? How does that work?"
Yeah, it was wild. So Steve Park was the first athletic director here at Corner Canyon, and he
Right.
opened it up, and then he was ready to be done. And so Ken Smikle, who was a science teacher here, he was asked to do it. And Ken reached out to me because he knew that I'd done some stuff and helped out a little bit with Alta, and I'd reached out to Ken. I said, "Hey, I'm happy to help out with some things." But Ken was young and new to this, and I kind of thought, yeah, Ken's going to be here for 20 years, and I'm happy to help out where I can. And then all of a sudden, let's see, it's May or April of 2019. Smikle goes to DJ Daryl Jensen, our principal, and says, "Hey, I'm moving to Colorado." And so DJ comes to me and he says, "Okay, Ken's leaving. Do you want the job?" I'm like, well, what does the job mean? What do you expect? And so we kind of did a little bit of back and forth, and he said, "Well, yeah, I still want you to teach. I still want you to coach. I want you to do the things that you enjoy, but I'll need more out of you." And so, yeah, it was kind of wild how that played out. I think in retrospect, it shows, and that's when a few people have reached out to me like, well, how did you get to this job? And it's connections, it's making relationships with people, and then you just never know when someone might reach out to you and have a job offer for you.
Yeah. Talk about your certification and talk about why it's important as an athletic director to be certified.
Yeah, so I started taking those first three classes um that summer of 2019, because like I said, had been involved with helping do things, but I really had no idea what the job entails. And so I'm trying to just look for help wherever and get support wherever. And so I took those classes, and there definitely was a benefit from taking those classes, but also looking back, I part of me thinks those classes would have been even more beneficial after. I think they're beneficial to take when you are getting started, and I think they're also beneficial to take as a review after you've been doing it a little bit, because there's just so much that an athletic director can be doing that it was kind of information overload. And really the first few months on the job, really the first year on the job, it was okay, I'm struggling to do all I can to just make sure that the football game happens, so we have officials, that the buses show up, and just some of those little things, that then the bigger picture things, dealing with finances, dealing with equipment inventory, relations with the community, those things really, I relied heavily on Daryl Jensen to handle a lot of that, or my coaches to handle a lot of that. So I do think those classes were a great stepping point. And then I actually am now starting the next set of classes to get the next level certification, because I think I feel a little more comfortable about doing the day to day and handling the mundane things. And so I'm ready for the bigger picture things, because I like challenges, and so I'm ready to challenge myself. And I think learning from others, learning from those that have been doing this, because there's a lot of people that have worked at much larger schools and have done some amazing things. So taking those classes, learning from them, is something that I think is incredibly valuable.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's have you talk for a minute about, let's have you brag about your school. By my recollection, of course, I'm old. I think you had the baseball team in the championship last year. You had your basketball team in the championship. You had your football team in the championship. I think, yeah, obviously they won it. I think you had the golf team won it. I know you, the lacrosse team won it. I mean, that's six.
Boys
That's
track,
it.
you're forgetting
Yeah,
your
boys.
grandsons.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was. I don't want to get too much into my grandsons, obviously, because that's people think I'm tooting their horn. But yeah, well, the boys track, I think they won their sixth in a row, something like that.
Yeah, they've
And
won quite a
so
few.
you've been corners on, I don't know, on the rise. Obviously, I think it's a special place to work, I would think. Obviously, for those who don't know, I'm helping my son-in-law, who is the football coach. And when I say helping, I think it's more like he allows me to hang out with him, because he certainly doesn't need my help. But, as you know, I was at Jordan for 34 years, AD for 30. And there was a time maybe that we won 2 championships in a year, maybe once, maybe twice. Uh, we didn't we didn't have 6 championships in one year. I mean, so it's a little
Sure,
bit different. So obviously,
sure.
as you said, I've had 3 graduate grandchildren from corner and one that's currently a sophomore. So brag about your school and tell us a little about what it's like, because it's being a corner may not be like being at other high schools. The
No,
expectations are a little bit different, and people don't understand this. Your enrollment, I know that you're in the 6A, but people don't understand that Alta, that's a 5A school, has more students than you have. And I think
Yeah.
probably the success is what put you up to 6A, but I'll turn the mic over to you.
No, it's I people ask me, well, what's it like working at corner and comparing that to others? And I don't know how to compare it to others. My experience very limited. I coached at Alta, and then half of the kids that went to Alta, well, now they're going to Corner Canyon. And so it is incredibly unique, and it absolutely is something I think that I and that those that work here and the community, um, we I would say one of my big frustrations is that we just kind of accept it's commonplace, instead of, no, this is amazing. And each team, each year, it's a whole different team. Yeah, there can be some kids that were part of it when they were younger, but each one of these successes should be celebrated like it's an amazing thing. I remember going back to my high school experience. So West High in fall of '92, so it was my sophomore year. We made it to state and we won it. And I remember um, the days leading up to it. Every business on the west side had signs up saying "Good luck football, take state." And I just remember that the community was so excited about it. And when we did it, it was amazing. And I'm just a fan. I'm just a student that's going there. My friends are all playing, and I'm like, yeah, this is the coolest thing ever. And you know, I wish that our student body, I wish that the community would treat each one of these successes kind of the same way, that it is a huge deal, because it kind of does become, an expectation. And if you don't win, then the big question is, well, why didn't you? And it's like, well, geez, there's in 6A right now, there's 18, or in soccer, there's 19 schools that all want to win. Then they're all working hard. And so it's a different sense of reality that we work in. I think a lot of people think, oh, geez, you win, you guys are great at everything. And I said, well, I can rattle off some of the sports that we're not good at, and
Right.
that people are quick to remind, that are involved in those sports are quick to remind me that, hey, why don't you support this program or that program like you do football? Like, well, we do, but you can only do so much. I wish I could clone Eric Kerr and coach all of these programs. So it got kind of just getting long-winded here, but it is an incredible opportunity. We live in an area, I work at a school where we should have some success. We probably have more success than what we really should. But I chalk that up to, we have some amazing coaches that put in incredible amount of time. We have some athletes and some families. We have some talented athletes. We have some families that put in a lot of time and invest. And being successful really matters to us. And you combine that drive with some talent, and it's worked out really well for us. And I try to savor each one of those, because it's an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, well, so I want to know how I'm gonna say this next question, because I don't want to step on toes, because I know a lot of the corner community, but and it's tough for me to say it because everybody knows Eric's my son-in-law, so he's
Sure.
family. But corner has appeared in 6 straight championship games, been to 7 straight semifinals. I think before he got there, corner had been 6 or 7 years before he got there. They were in a semifinal. I'm only using him, and I can brag about him because he's my son-in-law. But coaches make such a difference, as you know, and I think all of our listeners, coaches make such a difference, because there's so many other schools that have so many athletes.
Yes.
But finding that coach and getting that coach, I think it makes such a big deal to you. I mean, when people say to me, yeah, well, your son-in-law's been in 6 state championships. That doesn't happen. That's nobody does that. But
Right.
but it takes so much. He told me when he went to corner, I said, "Are you ready to deal with those parents?" He just kind of laughed, and then he said, I went there my first week and I found there was 80 kids that want to be on the football team. They're all 6'1" and never seen the inside of a weight room in their life.
Mhm.
And if you look at those kids now, I think a big part of his success is he's got those kids in the weight room in January.
Yep.
And he not only
Starts
has a
first week
schedule,
of January.
those kids show up at 6 a.m.
Yep.
I mean, 5, 6, 7 dozen kids. And I
Yep.
know other schools are doing that, but I just think, well, and I look at the success you've had with your lacrosse guys, and I know Coach Ure with his baseball, and Coach Lunt. I know you've had some success in volleyball. Maybe softball hasn't been as successful, but it's a tough thing with a population that you have playing up at that highest level. So hats off to you and hats off to the corner community. Let me ask you this. This will be a tough question. So for those parents that are listening from Corner Canyon, I don't want to be too hard at them, but people tell me, well, the parents at Corner are so much harder to deal with. And I want your perspective on that, because I don't know that the parents at Corner are any different than the parents at Jordan when I was there, or the parents at
Sure.
Alta when you were there.
Sure.
I just want because people have these preconceived notions about high schools and about parents, and most of them not right. So give us your insight on that.
Yeah, I get that question all the time. And I would say my first response is we have an amazing group of parents that want to help out and want to be involved. And so that might be something that is a little more unique than maybe to some other schools, is just the sheer number of people that are willing, and the sheer number of people that are willing to go really above and beyond. Um, and again, I haven't worked out other places, so I don't know, but I do know people here want to be involved, and um, the the time sacrifice, the monetary sacrifice to help cover the cost of things, to fundraise, to give these kids these opportunities, is pretty amazing. And I acknowledge that not every school, not every community has that. Um, and I would say, I don't know that this is necessarily a Corner Canyon issue, a Draper issue. I think it's a broader. There's this club mentality that I think is really what maybe causes some of the issues of, when you're playing a club sport, your club coach is going to tell you what you want to hear. Because if you
Right.
don't get that message, you're going to go find a different club, and you'll find another coach that is going to give you the message you want to hear. And where we run into some issues is then because we have, you know, 40 kids that are playing club basketball. We have lots of kids that are doing lots of dance studios and things like that. And so, you have 60, 70 kids that are doing club soccer. So then when they come here and they're trying out and they don't make the team, or they're not the superstar, but then their club coach is saying, "Well, I don't know why you're not the superstar. I mean, you're the best." That's where we run into some
Hmm.
issues. But again, I don't know that that's a unique thing to us. It's just
Right.
maybe it gets put under a magnifying glass a little bit. But no, I mean there are it's easy to just focus in on those negative interactions. But then I step back and I look at, you come to a football game here and you see how many people are working concessions, how many hours are being put into putting on an event for 5,000, 6,000 fans to come and have a great time. It's like, wow, it's pretty rewarding to see how much people are willing to help out.
Thanks for sharing that. I think that's very interesting. Let me have you talk about a common myth about being an athletic director that you'd like to debunk to the public?
I think the biggest one is a high school athletic director is nothing like a university or college athletic director. I think, Mark Harlan, he's in the news uh, all the time for all the things that's going on at the U. And my job is nothing like Mark Harlan's. An athletic director, at least the way that my experience has been, I'm not making choices about who's going to be on the coaching staffs. I get a voice, but it's a small voice. That it's the principal that is going to make those decisions. Um, there's just a lot of stuff that the administrators do, either school administrators or district administrators. Budgeting, a lot of that it's handled by the school or the district. The district will say, here's how much you can charge for all these different things. Here's where that money goes. And so then the principal will say, all right, here's what it is.
Make it
Um,
work.
yeah, make it work. So much of this job is either the clerical side of things. You are ordering buses, you're ordering officials, you are putting together a calendar to that all the teams get their practice times and games in and all of that. Or then it's the manual labor of setting something up, setting a court up for a volleyball match, or then cleaning it up afterwards. Um, that's that's I think the biggest thing is there's just a lot of either you're a glorified secretary or a glorified custodian is kind of how I view my job.
There you go. What's the favorite part of your job, Pat?
Favorite part, I'd say there's two things. One, it's developing these relationships with coaches. Like I said, earlier coaches and influences in my life taught me that. Um, it was one of the things that Ken Smichael told me is he said his big regret, he spent too much time in the office and not enough time out with the coaches. And so I try daily to visit with my coaches that are working here in the building, have that face-to-face time with them, and then just and so there that is rewarding of just um, becoming a close colleague and friend to these various coaches. And then the other thing I think is just problem solving. I like challenges and I like knowing how to fix things, how to make things work, and putting everything together. I mean, one of my favorite things is on a Friday night, just sitting back and realizing, okay, look at these stands, they're filled. Um, People are having a great time, and everything's going smoothly. That my coach just gets to coach, and the ticket takers, they're just scanning. Everything is happening the way it should. Those are the things that I just sit back and kind of think, all right, yeah, this is awesome. Everyone is doing their job, everything's working the way it should work. That's where I take really some of my greatest joy is seeing an event happen without a hitch.
Well said. Let's finish with a couple of items. The first being, I need Pat's suggestions for a brand new AD in order to be success, and they need to follow your suggestions to become that successful AD. What would your two suggestions be?
Two suggestions. I would say one, learn as much as you can about everything. Learn about all the different sports, not to criticize coaches, but just to be aware, because I think that helps not only so the coach can talk to you and we can talk the same language, but then when parents come to you with issues, you kind of can understand what the sport is and kind of what's going on. I mean, I still don't know half the rules about a lot of the sports, but I think just learning all you can about all the different sports, learning all you can about how everything does work. People will get teased that I'm the unofficial AV specialist because if there's something audio related in the stadium, in a gym, um, I probably know how to fix it. Video related, I probably know how to fix it. Electrical systems, I probably have figured out how to make it work. Know how the scoreboards work, know how to program them, because invariably something is going to go out, something is going to break, and so you need to know how to handle that and still let it happen. I've had to. One year, we were having a basketball tournament going on, and we had games happening on a Saturday right before Christmas, and we have ice that's melting and water leaking onto the gym floor. So I have to figure out a way to climb up to the roof and chip away the ice so that we don't have a floor that's unplayable. So it's just, learning, being curious, I think is one thing. And then the other is develop those relationships, because um, you need to have a good relationship with your coach so that they're going to be honest and upfront with you and trust you. And then also, if there's something that I need to address with them, they're going to know that I'm doing that because I want to help them. I want to protect them. I want to help their program out. I'm not trying to get them in trouble. I'm not trying to come down on them, because there's a difference. And I see that with various things, that the same message can come from two different people, and the person that has a good relationship, that message is going to come across the way you want it to. And if it's from someone you don't have a good relationship, it's not going to go over well. um, Not only good relations with coaches, but the support staff, your front office secretaries, your trainer, your those that help with ticketing, anyone that's going to be involved with any of the events you put on, having a good relationship with them, letting them know you value what they're doing, those that are doing the scoreboards, that are announcing, um, giving them a thanks, because it's a thankless job that they're doing. And so trying to know them and reach out to them and let them know that they are needed and appreciated. That's something I think that goes a long ways.
Great suggestions. Thanks so much for sharing. We'll finish with this. Pat, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I think you're pretty thorough. I think you've been doing this a little bit, so you know what
Well,
questions to ask.
true enough. That's true enough. On that note, that wraps it up for
I
this edition.
appreciate
Oh, go
that you
ahead.
did not. I appreciate that you did not say, "Well, Pat, here are all the things you're doing wrong." I did this
Oh
for a
no,
lot of years at Jordan, and so I appreciate that you left that out
I
of the
think
interview.
you're
But
doing an incredible job, because I
well,
think
thanks.
as big as my job was at Jordan, not having the as big a school and the athletic success that you had, I think you're doing an incredible job. So that's
Thanks. We joked last year. We absolutely had the longest year in 6A, because we played a soccer game on July 29th, the very first day that you could play a soccer game. And then our baseball team played in the third game of the best of three World Series or championship series in 6A. Had multiple rain delays, and so the game finished after 9 o'clock on that Saturday of Memorial Weekend. So yeah,
yeah.
it's a lot, but again, there are days when I'm absolutely exhausted, but it's a very rewarding position to be in.
And on that note, that wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Our special guest again today has been Pat Thurman, Registered Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Corner Canyon High School. Pat, thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.